wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
You're listening to A Quirky Journey, the healthy family podcast with your hosts Jo Whitten and Fuad Kassab. Woo!
Yes, we're back after a long hiatus of just a few weeks. It feels like forever.
It feels like forever, but we got rested and energized and we're ready to go.
So I don't know, guys. This might be the last 4 months of podcasting that I have before I go, and I may never come back. So I hope you're enjoying this podcast.
Make the most of them while you can.
Do you want to talk about today's podcast?
Sure. So I was saying to Fuad that a lot of people, well, I think we all kind of make all these New Year's resolutions and we want to get started on a healthier way of eating and a healthier way of living, and we think about it all at the new year and we plan. And a lot of people that I've talked to and seen online are working on gut health like we are, and they're very focused on starting off the year in a healthy way with healing the gut. And a lot of them are doing GAPS. And we find that if you're starting GAPS, the Christmas holidays is the perfect time to start, although it is hot, which makes it hard to drink soups and broths. You just got to sit under the fan. But it is easier in that you will go through a stage of die-off and you will have like that flu feeling. And sometimes if it's small children will refuse to eat and they'll be cranky. Sometimes people will vomit or they'll get fevers or they'll get all sorts of die-off reactions when they're changing when they're changing their diet to heal the gut, because that first period.
Carbohydrate withdrawals. So I think that's
carbohydrate withdrawals is a big one. Yeah,
it's muddled in there with the.
It is
because a lot of people think it's just die-off symptoms.
That's right. It's your body's screaming for sugar. And there is ways to soften that so that it's not such a harsh changeover. And we talk about that a lot in the program and if you go to the blog, the Getting Started with GAPS, or what's it called? I always forget the name of that blog post, but anyway, you'll see it there. It's about getting started with GAPS. There's ways. Yeah, we'll put a link. But there's ways to get started, softly, so that you're not doing the whole cold turkey thing. But a lot of people do start in the Christmas holidays.
Cold turkey is really good on GAPS, by the way.
It's perfect. Yeah. But yeah, there's, especially if you're working usually and you've got kids at school and all the craziness of everyday life, it's hard to start a complete change with your diet. So in the holidays is a great time to start because you can spend some time at home just resting. The kids don't have to be at school, so they're not going off to school cranky and upset because they don't feel well. So Christmas holidays is definitely a really good time to start GAPS. So if you are starting GAPS, or even if you're just wanting to make some changes to your health and work on some things to help heal the gut without, properly doing GAPS, this podcast will be really, really helpful to you. So this is one that we're re-sharing, and it was a talk that Elyse Comerford did for us at our gut health retreat on beginning GAPS and what it means and all about the microbiome and how it all works and the science behind it and how to get started, because there's that feeling of being overwhelmed with a lot of people when they change their diet, and this will really help you to get in the mindset and to get started. Elyse is a nutritionist and health scientist and a GAPS practitioner, and she answers the questions in our gut health support group each week and helps people to, figure out all the nitty-gritty questions with GAPS. So she's been a really big help to us and to our program members. If you do want to look into using our program, it will really help you to know what to cook and to have variety and to have lots of support in your GAPS journey. So that's gaps.quirkycooking.com.au. You can have a look at that as well.
We have a $50 off coupon during the month of January, which is Jan 50 off. So that's JAN50OFF. If you go to gaps.quirkycooking.com.au, you'll be able to sign up and use that coupon code Jan50 off, and you'll get $50. And it's from now until the end of the month. So make use of it now. Send it to your friends. It's a lifetime subscription, so you may as well save money now. If you have any questions, email us at help@quirkycooking.com.au so we can clarify any issues you may have or any hesitations you have about joining the program. It's an excellent resource. We're always making it better, always keeping it as up-to-date as possible with the gaps, knowledge that's coming in from all the people who are training with Dr. Natasha Campbell-Bride. It's an ongoing work for us, and we feel like it's one of the programs that is the most maintained when it comes to the gut health world, especially around gaps. And we've seen so much benefit out of it, and we have thousands of people already signed up here, and it's just phenomenal. This program is just so strong, and it's got so much to offer to you. In addition to that is the Facebook group where you join all the others who are on this journey together, and there will be a lot of people joining up in January, so you'll be able to compare and get advice and ask.
Begin together.
Yeah, so you'll be all on the same page. Plus, you have some veterans who have been healing for over a year now, and they'll give you a lot.
Or two.
Yeah, two. Yeah. So
we are working on new videos and new recipes and updating the program, and that will be something that we just add to as we go along. So, like Fuad said, it's a lifetime membership, so you can just get it now while it's on special. And then you've just got it to help you. And as we update things, you'll just keep getting new recipes, new videos. I just did a video. I just finished editing it last night for seasoning pans, for instance. So I've updated that, and we'll be adding that to the program because we get a lot of questions about cookware and what's healthy and what's not. And if you're using cast iron or cast steel, what is it called? Formed steel. How to season it and how to, troubleshooting. Yeah, like I've included in the video, okay, when your pan surface has gone all patchy, don't freak out and panic. This is what you do, and this is how you get it back to, well seasoned, and because that's the kind of questions we get. So it's a very practical program, as well as I think it's very inspirational too, because we do get a lot of feedback from people saying, I was so overwhelmed until I found your program. And one lady, or actually I've had a few say this, when I got it, I opened it up and started looking through it, and I just started crying because it was just so comforting to have all that help and to know that I could do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something that we've really worked hard on. So I hope that it will be helpful to lots of you.
And not only is it helpful, the food's delicious. So that means that those of you who are trying to come up with gaps recipes on your own, it's pretty much going to be uninspired because you're exhausted and you're not in creative mood, and you need some nourishment that is also something that you're very happy to put down, your digestive tract. So make sure go check it out. And if you have any questions, let us know. help@quirkycooking.com.au.
Yep.
All right, so we'll move on to the podcast, guys. Have a great start to your year. Joe, thanks so much for welcoming me back this year, not kicking me out.
Oh, Fuad, I couldn't do without you.
I wish you could. I really wish you could.
Hey, I did without you for a few weeks. Come on.
Yeah.
I survived.
You're my best friend.
Oh, thanks, Fufu.
All right. We'll say goodbye here, leave it there. Enjoy the podcast, and we'd love to hear from you. If you have any feedback on the podcast or any questions, let us know. If you have any guests you want us to bring on this year, or any topics you want us to address, send an email to us, and we will be in touch next week for another new podcast. So chat to you later.
Thanks, guys.
Alrighty, so I want to give you guys a really good understanding of gaps today. I don't want to just talk at you. So if there's any questions as I'm going along, I don't know what you guys know. So if there's questions, just stick your hand up, and we can make sure as we go along that you all have a really understanding and no one's getting overwhelmed. And that's the most important thing about learning about gaps, about doing anything to do with your health, is taking it one step at a time and taking from it at the time what is right for you. That is the most important part. This information that I'm telling you today, it's not the only time you're ever going to hear it. You don't have to write it all down. You don't have to remember every little piece of it. It's just taking... It's just taking from it... Great, that's a great idea. It's taking from it right now what you guys need. So if all you take from it is one thing that you can go away and start implementing, take that, because you know you have support. There's the gut health support group, and now you'll be part of the gut health program one. So all the information I'm giving you, you can access it again. It's not, you know, don't need to remember it all right now. So we'll start out with why your gut's so important. A lot of you probably already know a bit about the gut. I'm guessing when you're at a gut health retreat. But we'll just kind of reiterate why the gut plays such a big role in our health, and why it's called the brain in our belly. So the gut plays a huge role in our immune system. The gut lining is like a protective barrier over immune cells. So immune cells are just laying underneath that layer of epithelial cells in our gut. So that protective barrier is protecting our immune system. 85% of our immune system is actually in there, in our gut. And when the bacteria in our gut is in the right balance, it's actually producing every antiviral, antimicrobial, antibacterial substance we could ever need. So, for example, a lot of you will have heard of you all will have heard of the herpes virus. So you can have the herpes virus in your body, and if you have the right bacteria going on and your immune system is protected in there, then you can actually have that virus never expressing itself. So your body should be able to take care of anything like that. Every antibacterial substance you could ever need can be produced in there when your gut lining is in good repair and when you have the microbiome that can respond and take care of things. Our digestive system, so that one's pretty obvious. So our gut's there, or everything that we put into our body, that's where it gets dealt with. So the enzymes to break down our food, the bacteria to make sure we're getting all the nutrients. It's the protective barrier between what goes through our gut wall into our blood. So that whole process that's going on in there is relying on the fact that your gut lining is in good health and you have a microbiome there in good health as well to deal with everything that's going on in there. The gut-brain connection. We've got a vagus nerve that goes from our gut all the way up to our brain. If there's toxicity going on in here, then we've got toxicity flooding up to our brain. And then we have the blood-brain barrier. So that's a layer of zonulin over our brain. We have pathogens that's eating away at our blood-brain barrier. And then that basically anything toxicity that's in our blood can go through to our brain. And when you've got toxicity happening in here, it's going through from your unprotected gut lining straight into your blood, pumping around to your brain. So we've got that kind of that toxicity going through our body. And then our detox systems. So if we've got a lot of toxicity going on in here, our liver needs to cope with that. So what happens with a lot of GAPS people is that their liver just starts to So our gut plays a really important role in all those systems. What's going on in our brain, how we're digesting our food, what toxicity we've got going on in our body, how our detox systems are coping with that. So when those systems start to fail, we see a whole host of issues that start to come from that. So what do we mean when we talk about healing the gut? So there's two things we really want to do. We're wanting to heal the gut lining. So on the gut lining, you've got basically these finger-like projections that are called villi. And on the villi, there's cells called enterocytes. And on them, they've got little microvilli. So we've got these villi with enterocytes, the cells that are born down here in the crypts. They travel up and they get shut off. It's a normal process that happens. And our gut lining replaces itself every 2 to 3 days. And on each of those cells, we've got microvilli that have like little hair on top of them with all the enzymes to break down food. So we want them to all to be healthy, happy process going on. Enterocytes form here, travelling up the villi and then getting shut off. This is a normal process, happens every 2 to 3 days. So when that's happening all right, we've got happy, healthy cells on our gut lining. We have cell junctions that look like this, nice and tight. And so that gut lining, that's our protective layer between us and the outside world, basically. Your tube from here to here is the outside world. So that gut lining is our protective layer. We want that to be in good repair. Then the other kind of part of gut health is our microbiome. So our microbiome, the amount of bacteria you have in your gut, it would weigh a brick. That's how much bacteria you've got going on in there. And there's this symbiotic relationship between your gut bacteria and your gut lining. So these guys need to be working together. Just like you need good soil in the ground to grow pretty flowers, you need good gut lining to grow good gut bacteria. And the relationship's symbiotic. So you need good gut bacteria to keep the integrity of that gut lining. So they're just in this symbiotic relationship. So when we're talking about gut health, we're not just talking about taking probiotics, we're talking about working on that whole ecosystem where you're repairing the gut lining and you're also repairing the microbiome so that they can have that healthy relationship that keeps each other happy. And then at the same time, when we're talking about gut health, we're talking about what we're putting in there and the effect that it has on those two things. So does anyone have any questions so far about what the gut's important for and what we're talking about when we're talking about healing the gut?
I guess hearing that you're saying that it renews itself every 3 days, is it that process, if that process isn't happening properly, that's really another disease?
Yeah, so the question was about when the gut's health's renewing itself every 2 to 3 days. When that's not happening properly, that's when we have the issues. So yeah, so that feeds into the issues. So the reason why the gut lining, so there's enterocytes that are born in the crypts and travel up there every 2 to 3 days. The reason why that process might not be happening right, it's usually because the gut flora is damaged. So, and that often happens from birth and just environmental toxins. There's lots of ways that our gut flora is damaged. So if that gut flora is damaged, because of that symbiotic relationship, the gut flora and the gut lining, that gut flora is damaged, it's not protecting the gut lining properly. So those cells become damaged. And so they may be born there and travel up in 5 days, or travel up in 1 day, or they're born mutated. So there's something wrong with those actual cells when they're born. But I think the promising thing when we say that it happens every 2 to 3 days, it's like, well, in 2 to 3 days, if you start putting the right building blocks in there, you can see a difference. Yeah. Our liver replaces itself every 3 months. So these cells are replacing. We just need to get the right stuff in there. Yeah. Any other questions about gut healing, why the gut's important?
If this is like the case, why can't doctors see this and prescribe,
Great question. So the question was, if this is the case, why doctors can't see this and prescribe this sort of diet? Pharmaceutical companies can't make money out of it. Oh yeah, that's a really hard one to answer because why exactly? Why? I don't know why. They don't study nutrition. I've studied far more nutrition than a doctor has. You've probably studied far more nutrition than a doctor has. Yeah.
I had an appointment with a doctor the other week and she had a fourth year medical student there and I started telling him what we've been doing. He just looked at me blankly and said, "Why are you trying to heal your gut?" What do you mean? He said, "With medication." And I said, no, diet, lifestyle, and I'm trying to explain to him. He's going, "What do you mean there was a problem with your gut?" But he had no idea what I was talking about. And I thought, 4 years of medical school and he does not know anything about leaky gut, unhealthy gut, microbiome. He was just completely blank. How sad.
Yeah, and I have a lot of clients that have seen every specialist under the sun. Sorry if anyone is a gastroenterologist, but they're probably the pinnacle of being they should know. They tell my clients that what they're eating has no effect on what their gut issue is. So I have clients with ulcerative colitis and things like that, and they tell them there's no point changing your diet except to just eat less fibrous foods like white bread, white rice, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Confused.
Yeah. Yeah.
lady gastroenterologist, pregnant, told me that I was my daughter's problem because I wasn't feeding her bread and dairy, and that was her weight loss problem because there was no celiac disease in the colonoscopy or endoscopy. So I changed gastroenterologist and I went to an Asian gastroenterologist. And I said, I'm gluten and dairy free, but I feel there's more. I still can't get any weight on. He said, oh, that's fine, keep going with that. So you can find ones that will, and he said, I will do more testing.
Yeah, and usually they just say things like, oh well, if you think it's helping, then keep going with it.
Yeah.
But they don't. They would never come and tell someone, you know, your diet has a big effect, and it just makes it makes me crazy. Like I could go crazy about it because it's like, why would the food you put in your body that's where it goes? Why would food, its biggest role is breaking down food so that we can gain nutrition? Why would it not affect it? Like food is building blocks. Like if you don't put in the right building blocks, why would that not affect the health of the rest of your body? That's how we nourish ourselves. If you don't feed your garden right, the plants will die. Like if you don't feed your animals right, they'll get sick. Like, does that not happen with us? Yeah, I know. Like, everyone's like, don't feed your chicken avocados because that makes them sick. Like, well, and then what do we eat? So it's like, there's a saying, I forget who said it now, I wish I could remember, but he said, humans are the only species smart enough to make their own food and the only ones dumb enough to eat it. That's a good one. Yeah. So getting back on track, this is an ecosystem. So what we've got going on in our gut is an ecosystem. And I'll bring this up many times through what we talk about because every part of healing comes back to that. What we're trying to do is impact the ecosystem that we've got going on here. So just like if you went and cut down one species of tree in this entire rainforest, that would affect every single part of that rainforest and all of the species that live in it and all the animals that live there. So just like anything we do that affects species of what's going on in here, that just has this flow-on effect, and it's not an immediate effect. It's something that happens as the ecosystem changes with what we're doing. And so that's the same with healing. You know, you don't take lactobacillus and then go, lactobacillus is in there now. You take lactobacillus and that has this flow-on effect of starting to alter that ecosystem, and that takes time. So everything we're doing, we're shifting a whole ecosystem where everything's interacting with each other. So when people go and do lots of testing, and I will talk a lot about testing later, I won't go into it too much now, but with testing and we're finding, you know, single strains of things, and you've got an overgrowth of this and this and this, and you could see that in one person and then see that in the next person. They have totally different ecosystems. So when we're trying to do things with antibiotics, or, you know, we're trying to control what's going on in that ecosystem, we know nothing about how all of those things interact. You know, good bacteria don't wear green hats and bad bacteria wear red hats. Like, we can't just identify and go, you know, the good ones and the bad ones. We don't even know what's good and bad, how they interact with each other. One that we think might be bad in somebody else because they've got something taken care of it in there that it's actually doing good. So when people get into all the fecal stool transplants and all that kind of stuff, we don't even know what a good microbiome looks like. And so I think that will answer the question as well when it comes to doctors. We just don't know enough and even like the people that are doing the fecal transplants and looking at stool, like, you know, what's in the stool, I think sometimes we're pretending to know more than we do. And I think any good scientist will say we know nothing. Yeah. Hippocrates said it like a very, very, very long time ago, that all disease began in the gut, but now science is catching up to that. So it's like takes another few thousand years and then science catches up. So, and it's the same with this stuff, and that's what Dr. Natasha talks about. She's like, because she gets really pounded with the where's the science, and we need to value clinical experience more than we do, because there would be no science without clinical experience, because how would you ever develop a hypothesis? So when you're seeing clinical outcomes, no matter how many scientific reasons people can pull up why it doesn't work, you're not going to believe it because you see the clinical outcomes, so that can't be right, science is wrong. So we can either start doing this, start healing ourselves, start healing our family, start healing our kids, or we can wait for science to catch up and tell us to do it. So I know where I'd rather be. So what is GAPS? Is everyone feeling good? Not overwhelming anybody? No, tell me if it starts to get too much information. So basically, the way GAPS issues develop is usually there's some kind of damage to the gut flora. So the way that happens, a whole host of ways. So environmental toxins, medications, vaccinations, alcohol, processed foods, anything else, stress. So that's how we get passed on the microbiome. So there's a whole host of ways that we're damaging it. I'd say processed foods will have been the first way, the biggest way that we started damaging our gut microbiome. And then that gut microbiome gets passed on to a child during birth. So we used to think that in the womb a child's gut was sterile, but we know now they actually start swallowing a little bit of the amniotic fluid while they're in the womb. That's where they start to get their first infiltration of bacteria. And then when and if they pass through the birth canal, they get their big infiltration of bacteria all over their body in their mouth. And then breastfeeding, if and when that happens, they get their next concentration of bacteria. And then the bacteria where they're born. So more often than not these days, the hospital. So that whole process is how we pass the microbiome on. And what's happening these days is the microbiome that's getting passed on in the first place is already damaged. So my mother, she was born, her mother already had a damaged microbiome. So my mother was born with a damaged microbiome. And then through her life, she's been a very stressed person. She ate lots of processed foods, 80s, that was the cool thing to do. She smoked, she will have drank alcohol, not a lot, but still did. Took medications, vaccinations, toxins in the environment, toxins on her skin. So she's gone through this lifetime until 25 when she had me, of taking her already slightly damaged microbiome and just giving it a bit more of a hit. And then she's had me. So I was cesarean born, I was bottle fed, I had earaches and antibiotics when I was young. So I was born with her microbiome that she'd already damaged further, and then I damaged it further. So I took drugs, I drank, I didn't have a very good lifestyle. I ate a lot of processed crap food, I ate heaps of sugar. I've had a lot of stress in my life and depression. I've taken medications, I've taken lots of antibiotics. So I've had my lifetime of doing that, further damage to my microbiome. And so then I had my son. So thankfully, I'd done a bit of healing before I had my son. But I think no matter what you've done, you'll always wish you'd done more. So that's how we're passing on this microbiome that's just further and further damaged. And that's why things like autism is doubling every 5 years. Obesity is like 60% of Australians are obese, which is ridiculous. 1 million Australians are diagnosed with depression every year. I was never diagnosed, so imagine all the ones who aren't diagnosed. 2 million are diagnosed with anxiety. I was never diagnosed. Imagine all the others that aren't. So that's why these rates, and they're all constantly increasing. And we wonder why. It's just we're passing on this damaged microbiome and then we're consistently keep damaging it with our lifestyles. Did I answer a question there? It's easy to go off on tangents. Yeah. So basically that's how GAPS issues are developing. And now what that actually looks like. So when we're born with that gut flora that's damaged, it means that our body is not properly protected. So our gut lining, so if you spread your gut lining out, it would be the size of a tennis court. That's the area interacting with the outside world. When our gut flora is damaged, it means our immunity is damaged. It means that we're not protecting our body. And it's not just our gut, it's all our mucous membranes. So vagina, the nose, the mouth, like where all the microbiome's meant to be, it means those areas are not protected properly. So that's where the beginning of GAPS issues start to develop. So abnormal flora in here leads to abnormal digestion. It means things are going to sit in there and they're going to putrefy. It means we're not going to absorb the nutrition from our food properly. Our brain takes up 25 to 40% of our nutrition. So if we're not getting the right nutrition, we're not getting the right nutrition here. So when we have abnormal flora, we're not protecting our gut properly, we're getting not digesting food properly, it's starting to putrefy, that's toxic. Pathogens are allowed to overgrow because we're not protecting our gut and our mucosal membranes, we're not protecting everything properly. So pathogens can become overgrown. So then we just end up with this toxicity. So we've got food in there, not getting broken down properly, that's toxic. We've got pathogens producing toxicity. And so our body's left trying to deal with all of that. Just the toxins then become distributed around the body. So through the blood, and basically at some point, our liver is our powerhouse of detoxification. That's what's got to deal with all the toxicity. So at some point, the liver can't cope anymore. So basically, if you think of the liver as having five pathways that we detox through. And things go into the liver to get detoxed, for example, estrogen, it gets slightly changed in the liver and then needs to go through one of these pathways to get removed from the body. So if these pathways are blocked, if there's toxins producing, if there's pathogens producing toxins, as well as the onslaught of toxins from our environment, what we're putting on our skin, what we're putting in our mouths and the toxins that are in that, what we're exposed to, the stress. On top of that, our body just needs to deal with its own hormones. So there's stuff that in our body, like detox is not some fad word, it's not something you do for a week and drink lemon juices, like it's something that our body does every single day. And I think it's become a bit of like a, detox, but it's really just an important process. And so if our body's got this onslaught of other things that it's trying to cope with, and it won't factor in your estrogen first, it'll factor in last night's coffee or the pathogens producing toxins, it'll factor in them first because that's stuff that it doesn't even recognise from its own body. So you're trying to cope, your liver's 5 pathways are trying to cope with all that stuff, and then when your hormones just come in to try and get detox from your body, there's a little trapdoor, they just get thrown out, they just get recirculated. And it ends up happening with a lot of stuff, lots of toxins just getting recirculated because this can't cope anymore. And so that is the point often where people go, what's going on? I'm really unwell. Their detox systems have begun to fail. And so they're just not, their body is not coping, those pathways are not coping anymore, and they've just got toxins coming in to get detox and just going around. They've just got this flood of toxins. So does that make sense as to how GAPS issues develop? Yeah, so yeah.
With the toxins, could that be something like again continuing colds and flu, like just one after the other?
Say that again?
With the toxins, could that be causing like cold and flu to occur and just one after the other continually?
Yep, so the question was with toxins, can that be causing colds and flus to occur continually? Yes, and not directly, but indirectly through the fact that your immune system's going to be damaged. So if we've got, and it's really like chicken or the egg, what comes first? But your immune system will have been damaged initially. So when there's damage to the gut flora, how I was saying 85% of the immune system's in the gut, there's damage to that, there's meant to be that protective layer over those immune cells, then the immune system's damaged, and then the flood of toxins mean that your body's left struggling to fight anything. So it's like there's a multitude of things that are having an impact on that. But yes, if there's colds continually, there's damage in the immune system, there's toxicity, the body's not coping. Does anyone else have any other questions so far? Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that the body starts expressing these issues. So GAPS is split into 2 syndromes, gut and psychology syndrome, gut and physiology syndrome. Rarely, well never, will there just be one. But I think it was just a neat way that Dr. Natasha found to explain the 2 ways that the body's being affected. So gut and psychology. So flood of toxicity to the brain. So I mentioned the vagus nerve. So when there's a flood of toxicity to the brain, that's the brain's left trying to cope with that. There's that layer, that protective layer over our brain, the zonulin. Pathogens break that down. That's our blood-brain barrier. So that starts to get broken down. So this is the way, and then we've got toxins floating around the blood because the liver's not coping anymore with those pathways. Things are getting recycled around the body. So we've just got this flood of toxicity going to the brain, and the blood-brain barrier breaking down by pathogens, and toxins are just accessing the brain. So that's the way the gut and psychology syndromes are developing. So things like Alzheimer's, dementia, ADHD, ADD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, epilepsy, anxiety, depression, OCD. So things like that. That's how they're developing. And then when it comes to the gut and physiology syndrome, so we've got the digestive issues. So it's pretty obvious how they're happening. The gut lining's damaged, the microbiome's damaged, we're not breaking down food properly, we're uncomfortable, we're bloated. Toxins in the gut actually, pathogens in the gut are producing toxins, releasing gases, making us feel bloated. There might be wind, there's stuff fermenting in the gut, there's going to be wind. So that's how those digestive part of the issues are developing. And then when our liver is failing us and those detox pathways are failing, then we're left with issues like the lungs trying to cope, asthma, the skin trying to cope, eczema, psoriasis, boils. And then we're trying to eliminate through the urine. And if those mucosal membranes aren't protected properly, then we're ending up with things like vaginitis, UTIs, cystitis.
So it's like dementia and Alzheimer's, if people are on the GAPS diet at an earlier age, there wouldn't be as much Alzheimer's and dementia in the world. Exactly. Has there been any studies where they've introduced this diet into the nursing home and measured it against another nursing home?
So the question was if there's ever been any studies where this kind of diet has been introduced to a nursing home and then compared. Not that I know of. I wish there would be. Maybe I'll have to go into it.
Yeah.
The thing with any study to do with nutrition is that most nutrition studies that we know of so far, even some of the most popular ones, were done on self-reporting. So it's going to people and go, what did you eat over the last 3 years? How many times did you eat this? How many times did you... Like, do you know what you ate over the last 3 years and how many times you had dairy and how many times you had meat and how, you know? So much nutrition research is based on self-reporting. And like to control an environment to do nutrition studies long term is very, very difficult. It's like, I guess a nursing home is probably one of the best places to do it because it is a controlled environment. You can control what people are eating. But that's why there's a lot lacking in nutrition research, because often it needs to be an N equals 1 experiment, which is you on you.
It's crazy because it could save so much money by getting nutrition right.
Yeah, and it's heartbreaking when you see.
Well, it's kind of too late by then, because by the time already is there to know that they don't have really good teeth, they can't eat lots of things.
Don't need teeth for broth.
You've still seen some reversal.
Yeah, and that's a how long's a piece of string. You don't know what they're dealing with, don't know. But I believe there's always something you can do. It's never too late. There's always a point in doing something. Yeah.
Just nothing. It's so nonsense.
Yeah.
It's like hospital food.
Yeah. So with gut and physiology syndrome, the toxins are trying to leave in other ways. So through the urine, if cystitis, UTIs, when that system's not protected by the right bacteria, and through the mucous membranes, vaginitis, allergic rhinitis, so you're getting those issues with mucous membranes, and the mitochondria, so chronic fatigue syndrome. Mitochondria, Fuad touched on a little bit yesterday, they're those little powerhouse of all our cells that give us energy. So when people are starting to get things like chronic fatigue syndrome, it's their mitochondria starting to fail. So these are the two syndromes which I talked about separately, but they're not separate. So some of my issues were depression and anxiety, and also bloating. I constantly had diarrhea or constipation when I was young, so much so that my mum didn't even know, because I just thought it was normal. I just thought that's what everybody had. So, I had the physiological symptoms. I had acne all over my face, chest, back, shoulders. I got the thrush, I got the UTIs, I had sinus infections all the time. I had black eyes, I had food intolerances, I had all the physiological symptoms, and then I also had the anxiety, the depression. At one time I was going to admit myself for bipolar. I had all that stuff going on, the abnormal eating behaviours. So it always comes connected, and I'm sure you could probably think of a few things how you can connect those two, that people usually have both. It's a holistic thing we're looking at, but it's kind of looking at the two ways that these develop. So does anyone have any questions about the syndromes?
One of the symptoms that I had, one of the symptoms that I had was my left hand would go numb. I did ask the doctor about it. He said I was too diligent about my body.
Sounds like my doctor. That's when I was younger. Yeah.
But can you explain why I'd lose feeling in my hand?
So sometimes it's hard to explain exactly why things are happening because I don't know the whole story, and there could be other things going on. So she was saying that at one point she was losing feeling in one of her hands. So pathogens attack the nerves, so it could be something going on there. It could be something to do with circulation. So there's a few different things that could be going on, but there's really, except for something like Down syndrome, there's hardly anything that I couldn't relate back to being a GAPS issue in some way or another. And when we're talking about GAPS, and I'll go into a little bit about what the GAPS diet entails, but we're talking about an approach that does no harm. And that's in the Hippocratic Oath that every doctor takes, to first do no harm. I think that happens. So the GAPS approach does no harm. And it's a way where you can actually start to take back power of your own health and see what's going on in your own body. And the thing about it just makes sense because you're taking it right back to the part of your body that interacts with everything that goes into your body. And that's where you get your building blocks for every cell, your hair, your blood, your eyes, your liver that's going to regenerate itself every 3 months, your gut line that regenerates itself every 2 to 3 days, your fingernails. Everything comes from the interaction of what's going on in here. So I found as a practitioner, nothing has become easier than focusing on GAPS and away from testing every other little thing, because you don't need to know exactly what's going on all the time. So you can just bring it back to healing from what the core of the issue is. So I still get a lot of clients that want to do the testing, that want to see all these, want to see what their hormones are doing, want to see what this is doing. And this is the way I look at it. It's like if you broke your arm. So you've broken your arm and you go to pick up something and you're like, that hurts. So I've got a picking up things disorder. And then you go to scratch your back and that hurts. I've got a scratching my back disorder. And then you go to pick up your child and I've got a picking up, okay, so now I've got a picking up things disorder, I've got a scratching my back disorder, I've got a picking up my child disorder, I'm going to go drive the car, and then you go drive the car and you're like, okay, now I've got the picking up things disorder, the child, the back scratching, the driving car, and as soon as I diagnose all these disorders and stop doing them, then I just get more. Because you've got chronic, you've got inflammation, you've got things going on here, so no matter what you end up doing, no matter how many things you eliminate, you're going to get some pain. And so that's that's how I see it when people, like, I see it like that. When they're like, I've got hormone problems, I've got this, I've got that, you're just listing all these things because you've got a gut issue. So it's like trying to identify until you eliminate everything. Same with food intolerances. It drives me crazy getting a list of people's food intolerances. And it's because we're so misled. And so it's like, you can look at all these food intolerances, like, yes, I know you've got a broken arm. Let's just fix the broken arm. Like, let's not worry about all that stuff. Don't spend all your money trying to see all the things that you could possibly do that hurt your arm. Like, just fix the broken arm. So that's what it comes to with gut issues. You can do all the testing, you can spend so much money, and I just get so many people that have spent so much money. They just spent so much money and they've got all the tests to show it. And a test from a year ago doesn't mean anything now. Your body, your metabolism is constantly changing. Your body is doing different things every single day. A test just is a temporal thing. It just shows a moment in time, that testing at that moment on that day. You know, it's so dependent on how you're feeling that day, what you ate that day. Like, there's so many variables when it comes to testing. And to then base your treatment on that and not what the person might be presenting with, broken arm. Like, it's, you know, you've just got to focus on what is causing the problem. And I've found 100% of the time that when I focus on healing someone's gut, they see improvement 100% of the time. So you can go and do all the testing and try and figure things out. And as I said before, we don't know anything. Like, we think we know, but we don't. Even when it comes to the gene testing, we don't know anything. So we're just trying to interpret these tests on the limited knowledge we have about our bodies. And with everybody's body, Joe might have an MTHFR mutation, and like Laura might have one as well, but their bodies are going to be acting so differently because that's not the only thing impacting their health. There's a whole host of other things. So it's the same with any testing. Everybody's got so much going on that when you just look at the person and you just treat the person and you start with a do no harm approach, which is what GAPS is, and it's a healing and it's a nourishing approach, then you can't lose. Yeah.
Okay. So how was it decided?
Start again.
So how is it decided that all those foods aren't going to cause you any harm? Is that...
So this is my favourite bit. This is my favourite bit. Because... I took it over. So how was it decided that these are all... Someone didn't just go, what can we come up with? Like, this is based on clinical experience. So this is based on the sickest people and what they respond to, what they can tolerate, what their body does best with, what heals them. So that's what this stuff is focused on. It's not a diet where someone's values come into it. The bias doesn't come into it. It's not just based on scientific research, which I now, with my experience and my views, see that as kind of lower class diets if they're just based on that. This is based on clinical experience with very, very unwell people at what heals them and how they get better. And although we like to go and do all our testing and think that we're all biochemically different, we're really not very different.
That's exactly what Mary said last week.
Yeah, we like to think we are. We want to be different. We're different in other ways, just not biochemically. And that makes sense. We're all the same species, so we're not biochemically very different. So these are the basic foods, and they're based on tradition, history. Like, this is historically what people ate. So we never ate processed foods. We didn't go and make our own foods in a factory. Like, that's when health problems started. So the GAPS diet, it's not based on something outside ourselves like a lot of other diets are. They're based on different values or different things. This is based on what our bodies do best with and what is most healing. And as a GAPS practitioner, I've seen many GAPS practitioners who take the GAPS diet and they put their own twist on it from their own training. It's really hard if you study as a naturopath to take your head out of some things. So take your head out of the testing, out of the salicylates, out of the phenols, out of the oxalates, out of all that stuff. But I've always really come back to GAPS because no matter what wormhole I've ever gone down, and I went through the MTHFR wormhole big time, I always come back to it's resolved with GAPS if you do it properly. And so I always caution people to be wary when they go to a practitioner, even if they're a GAPS trained practitioner, interview them first. Have they done GAPS with their family? Did they see results? Do they follow GAPS? Why not? Because I find when something's based on so much clinical experience, then if someone's going and changing things about it, they don't understand it properly. So everything about GAPS as it is, and sometimes things change. So we're constantly getting training from Dr. Natasha as things start to change, but it's only changing because people are sicker. As next generations come along, the gut microbiome is more damaged and people need a deeper healing.
What are some of those changes?
So the question was, what are some of those changes? The biggest one has been the need to go, I haven't really explained the GAPS diet yet, so if you guys aren't familiar with it, the first stage is eating broth, for example, like what you had for breakfast. vegetables, and with slow cooked meat in it as well. So one of the biggest changes is that people are needing to go without vegetables in the initial stages. So I'm having to do that with a lot of clients now, particularly children with FHIs. So that's when they're allergic to pretty much every protein on the planet, and they're given an amino acid formula prescribed by the hospital that they still react to, but it's what they react to least. Yeah, so that's the biggest change, is that needing to go to an even more basic level with GAPS and start the healing with just meat stocks. So I've had clients who have been on just meat stocks for over 6 months. So, and Dr. Natasha has been telling us that she's almost only doing that with people now, because of course she gets the sickest people. Yeah, so, well, and the meat from the meat stocks. So, and that's people thriving on that. So going from failure to thrive to thriving on that, because that's all their body will tolerate. So yeah, that's the biggest change that I've seen, is needing to do that more.
As from a preventative standpoint, passing on microbiome, I always do my 6-month-olds on just a teaspoon of broth in with whatever I name. Is that something that, I mean, I would think if I'm having a daily, he should be having it daily as well. Is that's normal, safe, that
Yeah, so the question was about giving broth to a 6-month-old. That's how you should introduce food. That should be their first food.
Yeah.
And this isn't for sick people. This isn't just for sick people. Yeah. This is a diet for healthy humans to thrive. So when you look at like the full GAPS diet, there are things that for someone who has a good digestive system, that they wouldn't need to remove. But the basis of GAPS is a diet for healthy humans. So it's a do no harm approach. So even if you don't think you need it and you did it, you would see the benefits. And that's like some people who have done GAPS with their family, and it's been a particular focus on one child that's really got the issues, but we're going to do it as a family. And then they see the changes in the child that they didn't think had any problems. And so GAPS helps humans thrive. This kind of whole food diet helps humans thrive.
Alex, what do you think about different cultures who like eat really differently and thrive? There are African people who eat 80% starch, veggies, Indians who eat 80% legumes with the veggies. And is it a European model for thriving based on ancestry?
So it's not necessarily a European model. In terms of being able to eat starchy veg, GAPS isn't saying that any food inherently is bad, but that we're damaged. So when it comes to healing damage, then all starch needs to be removed. So starch is resistant starch can feed good bacteria and help good bacteria thrive. But when there's any kind of overgrowth of bad bacteria, it's going to feed that too. So it's not saying that starch is bad. It's that starch needs to be removed when you're trying to heal a damaged microbiome. So once you do the healing through GAPS, starch can be reintroduced. So there's a process of coming off GAPS when you can reintroduce potatoes and sweet potatoes and even bread. So it's just about that healing. And when you look at any ancient diet, they ate plant foods, nut seeds, meat, animal foods, like that's what they ate. And like the research that Weston A. Price did, who was a dentist from Cleveland back in 1930s, and he was having children coming into his clinic with more and more cavities. And when it was like aeroplanes and cameras had just been invented, him and his wife went off and started studying traditional cultures, ones that had not been exposed to any modern foods, and found that they didn't have any cavities. So if they just ate food that there was like I'm going to get so many details wrong, but you'll get the gist. There was a little town in Denmark, Switzerland, Liechtental. I remember the name of the place, Switzerland, Liechtental. That all they ate was butter, cheese, rye bread, and like it was all made in their own town. So the only thing that they brought in was salt, and they brought it in by foot. Nothing else was brought in. They all made it all. and they had all healthy. They had fungus on their teeth, but once all that was cleaned away, barely any cavities, big wide faces, beautiful straight teeth. They'd run in cold creeks every day and were healthy as. So, and then 10 kilometres away was a town where they did have a shop and they had some processed food. And the children that were exposed to the processed food had cavities and weren't as healthy. And if they were the second generation where their parents had been eating the processed food and then had children, then it was actually starting to affect their facial structure, the straightness of their teeth and that kind of thing. So any traditional diet, it was based on real foods, and like it varied so much. Like the Eskimos ate like whale blubber and salmon eggs and things like that, and then Africans did eat more starchy foods. But it's like when you're getting it in the real form with everything you need to digest it and the microbiome's not damaged, that's, you know, we can handle the food provided by nature. That's when we've gone away from that, and now we're trying to repair damage, which is when we need to go to what some people can see as extreme, in removing anything that's giving the digestive system a hard time so that you can start to heal. And that's what GAPS does. So I always really try and focus on that with people, that it's not about food being bad, because you can start to really do your head in and form a bad relationship with food. It's not about food being bad, it's about giving your digestive system a break so that you can heal. I go on long tangents to answer questions, so did that answer your question, Alex? Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions so far? No, we're all good? Okay.
You said that you can find that you can go back to bread.
Yeah, so people that go back to bread. Yeah. So I guess that's a choice. Like, I don't. It's a choice that people can make. It is something Dr. Natasha says with GAPS, that you can get to a point where you'll start making your own sourdough, and if that's well tolerated. It's all based on you speaking to your body constantly. So people can tolerate bread, and it's like just not for breakfast, toast for breakfast, sandwich for lunch, a piece of bread after dinner, not that kind of thing, which is what we've been doing, which our body doesn't do well with that. So no one would go well going back to a standard diet, because you're just going to redo the damage. Yeah, but if that can be well tolerated, then it's not that bread is bad, it's that our bodies are damaged and can't cope with it. So that's what the problem is. Yeah. Cool. So the GAPS diet is made up of these foods. So the meat, the fish, organ meats, the eggs, non-starch vegetables, ripe fruit, nuts and seeds, fermented dairy, raw honey, and fermented vegetables as well. So these are all fresh, natural foods provided by nature. And when you look at it like that, people think of GAPS as a really restrictive diet. It's not restrictive. It's pretty much anything that grows on a tree on the ground and of an animal, just excluding those starchy vegetables that are harder to digest, is open to you. So, and as you can see with the food that you guys are eating here, that it's not a restrictive diet. GAPS intro is, so basically with the GAPS diet, there's full GAPS, which is where on the previous slide all the foods are allowed. So you have that range of food that are in the GAPS diet that are like any whole food kind of primal diet. And then during the intro phase, that's the 6 stages where it gets a bit more restrictive. And the point of that is to take away foods that are hard to digest and give the body a chance to heal. So our bodies have a natural healing mode, and that's when our digestive system isn't hard at work. So stage 1 of the GAPS diet is eating meat stocks, not bone broths, not 48-hour cooked bone broths, meat stocks. So using chicken drumsticks, chicken thigh cutlets, chicken wings, lamb shanks, beef ossobuco, oxtail, meat with connective tissue, bone, joints, cartilage, meat no more than 1 inch from a bone, not a whole chicken, not a lamb shoulder. It's that gelatinous meat close to the bone that you have in the initial stage of GAPS. And then vegetables, like you can have pumpkin, zucchini, broccoli, cauliflower, mushrooms. I was going to say sweet potatoes, no. Spinach, so less fibrous veggies. When you do broccoli, you don't do the stalk, you just do the florets, same cauliflower. So you're just doing low fiber veggies, the gelatinous meats, the meat stocks, and that's stage 1 with some ginger tea in between. And that's really giving your digestive system a big break. You're providing building blocks. So in the meat stocks is proteins like glycine and proline, which are amino acids that are building blocks for your gut lining. So you're giving your body building blocks, you're giving your body nourishment, you're adding fat to every one of those meals. Fat is one of the most nourishing foods and healing foods we can have. So we're having the meat stock, the fat, we're healing, we're nourishing, and we're giving our body a break from digesting. Yep. So the question was, with meat stocks, is it best to vary? Yes, because we're getting different amino acid profiles from each animal and their fat. So, and yeah, different fat profiles. So it is, when it comes to our fat profile, it's most similar to things like lamb, pork, beef, chicken. So you do need to vary between them. If you're really off one thing, don't have it. Some people get really turned off by the beef stocks, just don't have them. Try and add beef fat to some of your meals. But it is good to vary. You do get different benefits from all of them. So that you're giving your body a break is like fasting. So, you go under the juice fast, that kind of thing. By doing it this way, you're fasting whilst nourishing. So all these foods are nourishing foods. So you're putting your body into that healing mode. You have a natural healing mode when we fast. Fasting is something that we used to just do. You didn't hunt 3 times a day like we used to fast. So that's a natural healing mode that we're putting our body in, and we start to detox it. Yeah.
It's one thing for us to understand that, but how do you do this with your children?
Okay.
Got a 6 and 4-year-old.
Yeah. So the question was that it's one thing for us to understand, but how do you do it with children? So I think you explain it to them the best that you can, using examples like there's bugs in your tummy and we want to get them out, and they'll have symptoms that you can talk about, like, if you're going to do it with your children, obviously there's something going on. So how you can't eat this food? Well, when we do this, you should be able to eat that food. How you get a tummy ache? Well, when we do this, you might not get tummy aches anymore. Like, we're doing this so you stop feeling that so you can feel better. And when you do GAPS with children, I think the hardest thing that parents deal with is the thought of putting the children through something which causes them any kind of discomfort, and GAPS does. So you do detox and you do heal. I see it as any risk, any discomfort that you're putting your child through when you do GAPS is far, far, far outweighed by benefits. Because how can you know this information, know this, what you can do with your children to heal, which has an effect on their health for the rest of their life? They're going to feel like they have the flu for a week compared to them going on with things for the rest of their lives. And no matter where you're at, there's always a way in. So it's not like, okay, so go home and starve your children. It's not like that. So there's always a way in with healing food, and you should never be doing something that you feel terribly uncomfortable with. But as you just start to take steps, then you'll get to a place when it feels right, and that nobody else steps up. It's a very individual journey, GAPS. So yeah, sometimes I feel crazy when I'm telling my clients it's okay that your child's hungry, because that can happen on the introduction phases of GAPS. But their body is healing, and I've never ever had a parent do GAPS with their child and say, I wish I didn't do that. They're always, thank God I did that, because look at them now, they grew 3 inches in a month.
It's just, I guess, initially getting to think you know what I mean? My son would eat it, my daughter, I think she would probably rather start to some degree,
Yeah.
So it's kind of managing that, child screaming, I want food, they're not eating, they don't understand yet, they don't have that,
capabilities with, the understanding and the reasoning. I just wondered how parents cope with that.
Yeah. So the question was about how parents cope with when their child quite doesn't have the understanding of what they're doing and they actually just don't want to eat the food. So with the food on GAPS, with your child and their decisions they make around food, it doesn't happen here. So if your child's a fussy eater, that's not a decision they're making here, it's a decision they're making here. So any fussiness around food means that there is damage to the microbiome and pathogens are controlling what they want to eat. So GAPS children in particular like the sweet and starchy foods. And that's because pathogens thrive on sweet and starchy foods. So I think it's it's very hard when you're doing GAPS, when you're thinking about doing GAPS and looking at your children and trying to understand that their food decisions aren't their choice, that's really what's going on. They're not making a choice here. So even in the initial stages of GAPS, when children choose not to eat, and it does happen and their body is going through detox, and they do feel nauseous and they do choose not to eat, they get to a point where they have enough detox of those bacteria that they eat. And without fail, 100% of the time, I have never seen a child starve themselves. So they will eat the food, and it always happens. So it's basically once they detox and they eat a lot. They eat a lot. And I've had parents crying like, oh my God, I can't believe my child's eating. Like they've never eaten this before.
Assistant hematoxis photos at all? She has 2 kids. They have sensory processing disorder, a lot of health issues, a lot of like behavioral issues, and they were underweight and had a lot of skin problems, and they just weren't eating anything but white food. And then she put in a 6-month photo recently, like a photo journal of how they were and how they became. And she also talked about their behavior and how they started eating. And like Emma's she hates meat, like she almost vomits at the thought of it. And like a strange vegetarian kind of person who, for Joe and I to have her as an assistant, we're like, come on Emma, you've got to go on GAPS or something like that. So, but it's really hard for her to do it. And then she put her kids through it. And at first it was very hard, but now the kids are doing amazingly well. Like their skin's healed up, they're like craving broth, they're asking for broth and vegetables. Like it's incredible what happened to those kids, and they were really extremely difficult cases to start off with. I'm sure you've got a lot of stories like that as well. So it does happen, and rather quickly in the scheme of their life. It's amazingly quick.
It's like nursing your children through the flu for a week. So it's like, if you're coming at doing GAPS with your kids, there's obviously problems. There's obviously issues. So it's like, continue or nurse them through the flu for a week. And you feel like a crazy person. No, you can't have an apple. And it's like, I'm denying my child an apple. I remember when I put Dylan through it, he was like trying to run around me to grab a tomato out of the fridge, and I'm like, you can't have a tomato, you're not on that stage yet. And you feel crazy. You feel crazy. Even me, and I'm telling everybody to do it. Like, so you do feel crazy. I think sometimes with your family, if they're not on board, it's better just not to tell them till it's done. Like, not exactly what you're doing, I don't know. It can be hard if you don't have the support. But I guess from my position, I've seen it hundreds of times. And when it's your position to do it with your family, it's the one and only time. So I think it can be hard to come at the idea. And I think as a society, we have this real obsession with how we feed our children and worrying that we're going to starve our children if we don't take snacks out with us. And that's something fed to us by the food industry. It's like, feed them 6 times a day or you don't love them. And that, like, I just see that real fear with parents about feeding their kids, and like, oh, but if I don't give them the Weet-Bix breakfast, then they won't eat breakfast, and I have to send them to school without breakfast. And I'm like, just send them to school without breakfast. They won't do it very often, and then you'll be able to get the eggs into them. Yeah. Like, it's better to do that. They won't starve themselves. I say that I know that if you have a child on the spectrum, there is that fear, that potential that they actually will starve themselves. So I'm not talking about those cases, but in general, kids won't starve themselves. And by removing the foods that are causing the damage, kids recover so quickly. And I've had, I think the best one was a girl, she was about 7, And she had a really good understanding, a fairly good understanding of what they were doing. And I think it was about 4 weeks in, and I'm hated by a lot of the children at the start because I'm the lady that means that they can't eat bread. And then I think it was about 4 or 5 weeks in, she was going, "Mummy, thank you so much for doing that with me. Like, thank you so much for doing that with us." Like, no matter what they do or don't understand, they're going to understand how they feel before and how they feel after. And yeah.
Elyse, in that case, do you recommend, say, for that fluid week, for us with suburban children going to school holidays is the time to just bunk in and
Yeah, so the question was about when is best to do gaps with kids, like is school holidays better? Yeah. So it is better when you have them at home and you have that time. You don't have as much risk of the food stealing at school because it is a problem. It does happen that kids start stealing even out of the bin. Like when they just really, those pathogens, they're strong. They want to eat something. Hey, yeah, out of the bin, yeah, how that happens. So keeping them home is best, and they need to be, like Joe said yesterday, the M vitamin. They need their mummy. They need to be loved. They need to be nurtured. They need to be looked after. Yeah, so school holidays is generally a lot of people do it over those 6-week school holidays, Christmas ones, but then some of them don't want to because then it's Christmas, but you just think of hot weather. Yeah, you get over that pretty quickly, the worrying about hot and hot weather. Yeah.
How do you overcome feeling different? Like where I'm from, it's very country, you go to the sports club on a Wednesday night, all the kids are having hot chips and nuggets, and my kids
So the question was about how to overcome kids feeling different when they're eating different foods to other people. I think the best way is to always have the open communication with them about what they're doing and why, and having that understanding. And when inherently kids are always they're fairly in touch with their instincts, so when as humans we know what the best food is for us to eat. So I think when they're given the space and the opportunity and you're talking to them and you're making food with them and you're explaining them why we eat this and why other people might, like what other people might go through because they don't, I think that's your only option. I haven't hit that stage with my son yet, but if you ask him if we eat sugar, he says no because it makes us sick. Like, it doesn't matter what age they are, they have some understanding. If you ask him if we eat bread, he'll say no, only good bread, which the bread we make. So it doesn't matter what age they are, you can start to explain to them what you do and why, and then there's always some point where you've got to let it go because they're going to get to an age where they make their own decisions, and I think you need the balance between making them obsessed with food, and that's something that can be of a concern as well. So I think if you're basing everything you do on empowerment and knowledge, and then once you've done the healing on gaps, I think it's important not to talk about gaps too much, not to talk about stages too much, not to have this focus on something outside yourself, but rather with your kids talk about it like, because our body needs a break, this is healing. This means that when you get older, you're not going to feel sick and you're not going to, you'll be able to eat those foods, and rather explain it, like give them the reasons why. I find that kind of telling them gaps, they're just like, oh, because that lady said, So I think, talking about it, like there's books, there's like the Weston A. Price book, there's books about the Happy Poo, it's called, Happy Poo. So there's books that you can read to them. I think that empowering them with knowledge is the best way, and finding the foods they love, because they're not actually going to crave those other foods. When they see the kids eating those other foods, they're not going to, once they've gone through that process of detoxing and healing, they're not going to crave those foods. They're actually going to love the foods that you feed them. And so having their favourite stuff, being organised, taking it along with you, you might often find that they don't care. So I know if I've got the right stuff with me, he doesn't care. But if I don't, then he'll want what someone else is having. So I think it's just trying to manage it with all those things. And when you do heal through gaps, and you went to a birthday party and they had a piece of cake and you know you've gone through your years of your healing journey, it shouldn't be the end of the world. Like, if that's a decision that feels right at the time, if you feel like allowing them to have it is going to be more benefit than stopping them and how they might feel, like that decision made once every 6 months should not have a huge impact on their overall health. So I think it's having that balance with things as well. And they might learn from that experience. They might have it and feel yuck. And that's given them this really valuable learning experience where you've empowered them with the opportunity to make a decision. So I think it's just always giving them all the information. Does anyone else have any other questions so far?
What about family holidays? I mean, is it...
Okay, so the question was, what about family holidays? I think any holidays.
Yeah.
So do you mean like going away on holiday?
I mean, is that something that can be, you can do? Like,
Absolutely.
once you've
Absolutely.
healed and then-
If you want to go camping at any time on gaps, do it on stage 1. It's the easiest. It's so easy, you just heat it up in a pot.
Yeah.
Go.
I mean, like, maybe, you know, somewhere like internationally, like Fiji or something, you know.
Fresh, natural food. It's fresh, real, natural food. I think America might be the place to struggle most with it, and I think it's where you're at on your journey and where your priorities are, and it actually isn't that hard to get fresh, natural food when that's, you know, my priority when I go traveling is looking up all the restaurants and looking up all the places, and not just because I'm obsessed, because I love it. Like, I love food. I've never loved food more than since I've done gaps and can eat it all.
So you were saying before about the dehydrated bone broth not being appropriate.
Yeah.
I was going to take this actually. I was just saying so that you didn't the water or the kind of
Yeah, so the question is about the dehydrated bone broth.
Yeah.
So my only issue with that is when people are unwell, that they often don't cope well with it because it's very, very, very long cooked and it's dehydrated. It's high in glutamates, it's high in amines. So often people who are unwell, they don't cope with gelatin, they don't cope with dehydrated bone broth, they don't cope with long cooked stocks.
How do you know? I mean, she does have occasionally at home as an afternoon substitute cook. And yeah, I was going to learn that a bit when travelling so that I...
You'll know, she'll know. So if that's going to affect her in any way, so any regression, if she drinks it and she feels worse, then don't drink it. So, and it might be that having it multiple times a day maybe. With everything like glutamate, amines, and stuff like that, everyone has a tipping point. So it's, when it comes to how you tolerate something, it's so based on how you feel. No one outside will tell you. You will know. Yeah, so just think how she feels after she has it. If she has it, she's like, oh, good, then that's fine. And if she has it the next day and the next day and the next day, and then she's like, oh, I just had it, I feel so good, then don't have it so much. So,
yeah, we're really going to rely on it on the plane. She won't be able to eat plain food and like this particular maybe she can cook something.
Yeah, it's all in, stuff like that's all an N equals 1 thing in terms of how physio feels to respond to it. I'd be hesitant.
Try and test it. Ask them half an hour after.
Yeah, and it's the repeated having it that will make a difference. So it's not everything like that is cumulative. So it would be, but we'll have to chat about that later.
Because I'm going to be in trouble with the weeks to try and otherwise she won't be. I know you say you don't have to panic about you not eating for 24 hours, but
no, but that's starting. No, we'll.
She said to me, I'll just start on the flight. But that would be a long time by the time you get to the restaurant to order a piece of fish or something.
We'll have to chat about it.
I would say you probably heard from you when we looked at the CDN-based diet, vegetarian diet. I was just going to say, I did the elimination diet for almost 12 months. And it's about, like we said, like, it's about, we can't eat a lot of sort of slaves or amines, but we can have it, but it's when they reach that threshold. And I through doing that, I realised that I couldn't give him banana
3 days a week, if you had a banana one day and go on pears,
Yeah.
and then the next week maybe have a little bit of
Yeah.
It's about fixing that threshold.
Yeah. So all that stuff like that, if you imagine like you got a bucket and it's like when you have, and I don't want to go down this path too much and I'll tell you all why, maybe not today, maybe I'll get into that tomorrow, but this is not something that needs to be overly focused on, because the issue I have with fail-safe is it doesn't resolve anything and it's a band-aid.
Yeah,
So it's like just removing, it's like the broken arm analogy. It's like we're just removing the things rather than dealing with the issue. So when I talk about this kind of stuff, it's when you do gaps, it's something you only have to pay attention to in the very early stages because you actually resolve the issue that's causing it. But with histamine, like all that kind of stuff, it's like you got a bucket and it's like, you put some in, and then there's like a little hole in the bucket where it can trickle out. That's your body's ability to break it down. And it's just if you keep chucking things in faster than it can break it down, eventually it overflows. So that's what I'm talking about with doing it, yeah. So we'll have a chat about that later. So with any of that stuff, yeah. But I don't want to go too far into any of that stuff because I find people get way overly focused on it and go and do all this testing about it when it's just their, broken arm, their gut issue that you can resolve, and then you won't have those issues. Then they die off, and as they die off, as they die off, they release their toxins into our system. So you've taken away the inflammation, you've stopped feeding them, they release their toxins as they die off, and your body's left coping with all the toxins in your system that it then needs to detox. This is why we feel bad when we go through something like that. So we're getting rid of those lower grade materials and replacing them with good ones, and our body's coping with the fallout.
So what is there a detox pathway that blocks there?
So basically, that's why with the initial stages of gaps, you're removing so much that your detox systems would normally have to cope with. So the idea is that we're trying to free up some of those detox systems. We're doing Epsom salt baths. So while you're doing gaps, you're doing Epsom salt baths, you're getting out in the sunshine, you're looking at the toxins that you have in your home, you stop putting toxins on your body. All of that stuff is a part of doing gaps as well. And Dr. Natasha talks about, sorry? Anaemia, yeah. Right. Who wants to be So part of doing gaps is having that big focus on helping those pathways, helping those detox pathways so you can cope with the detox. Using magnesium spray on the bottom of the page. Resting. Magnesium spray. Magnesium spray on the
You've got one in your bag.
Yeah, you've got a little one in your little bag. Yeah, that's got last name.
And you've got Epsom salt.
Yeah, so doing your Epsom salt baths. Yeah, there's Epsom salt in my bag. Great. So detox support plays a big role in it, and just Alex will take us through that. Or is it today? Yeah, so we're going to go through it all today because that is a huge part of it, is removing that onslaught of toxins that we're putting in our body so it's not having to cope with it so much. So this is why we feel so bad when you're doing gaps. This is why it's called the healing crisis, because your body is just trying to cope with everything that is stored up and that it's left to do with replacing those lower grade materials with the quality ones that you're starting to put in. So then we just need to be supporting the body the best that we can. And it's really common to have some recovery regressions. So that's when, 6 months in, you're starting to feel really good, and then you go through a bit of a regression. And that's this happening, so it's just further retracing. When your body gets to another stage of healing, it then sees it as safe to dump another load. So when you do clear detox pathways, your body will go, oh, that's clear, you can deal with this now. So that happens all the way through gaps, and that's in the years that's still happening, that you'll get these, oh, why am I feeling so crappy then right now? And that's just that getting to that point of healing. So the pathogens, the bacteria, they can actually create biofilms around themselves, and after a certain period of time of doing healing, they might start to break through some biofilm, and then you just get this dump of more bacteria. So, any questions about the detoxing and what's involved with doing gaps and how that's happening? hearing all this, I know can be quite overwhelming, but one of the things I really focus on with my clients is just finding somewhere to start. It's all about just finding somewhere to start. And a lot of the people I work with, they're malnourished. I'm looking at them and I'm like, I just want to get nutrition into you. And that's the way you should look at it. So rather than look at it as I'm going to start this really restrictive diet, but then just like putting ourselves in that headspace that as a society we've always done. It's like, diet starts Monday, you've got to be strict, you've got to be restrictive, you've got to like feel deprived, you've got to feel hungry, you've got to, if you don't have the willpower then you fall off the wagon. Like every kind of way we've spoken about diets is so restrictive, and that goes against our instincts to be restricting nourishment to our bodies. And so I like to have this attitude towards gaps, like when I work with my clients, I just want to like go like this, like get things in, like because that's what you want to do. You want to get things in, you want to lift people up, you want to feel better. So often the early stages of gaps, they're not the first thing I talk to my clients about. It's get this stuff in, like you need more fat in your diet, you need more meat stock, let's get this stuff in, let's get you feeling really good. A lot of the women I work with, they're adrenal depleted. Their thyroid's not going very well, so it's like, okay, so just remove all this stuff, and they're just gonna, like, it's not the message your body needs to get sent when you're starting a healing journey. The message you need to be sending your body is, here's a whole bunch of nourishment, here's a whole bunch of building blocks, let's start getting the really good stuff in, so you can get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to start removing some of that stuff. Our bodies are very smart, so we need to focus on the nourishment rather than what it's taking away. So if you're going to take anything away from this talk so far today, it's just to start including the healing food. Start actually just giving your body what it needs. So that is the meat, stocks, the fat, the eggs, the fermented dairy, fermented vegetables, the organ meats. Like they're not a negotiable. They need to be included, and they're not what you think. So when organ meats are prepared properly, they're delicious. And they are like, they are the best pill you could take. So, yeah.
So what if my cousin's son was trying to have any fats? He was going to do stage 1, but he just had no fat.
Yeah, so there's always somewhere you can start. So how old is he?
He's
12, yeah. So when you think of a child like that who they've got such a limited variety of food they can eat, I'd say, is he not quite thriving?
No, he's not the biggest.
Yeah. So in terms of what he's already eating, he's not really going to be getting the nourishment from it. Yeah, so it'd be tough. There's always somewhere to start, and I think when you try and look at what's included in stage 1 and then think of your kids and think of what they eat and try and then picture lunch boxes and family holidays and all the ways that it's going to happen, that's the way you start to get overwhelmed. When you just go, this is where I'm at, and what is the next step from here? So where I'm at right now is someone, with those foods that you said I eat, the next step, start including stock. That's the next step.
Sure.
Yeah, so short cooked stocks, and they can remove the fat if initially that is a problem. Eventually it won't be. And then there's other things I would look at because of the fat. There's other things you can do. So there's always a step that can be taken from where you're at. Maybe you're still eating vegetable oil. It's highly unlikely with this group that you are. But then the step could be to start including butter and start putting butter in every meal, even if the meal is pasta. Like, it's not about doing it all right from the start. It's about looking at what you can start including and just start somewhere. Take that step, and then as you do that, and that becomes a part of life, and that's easy to do. It might be meat stocks. You might start making meat stocks for your family. It's a good time of year. They probably, you can make stews. They just look like dinner. So that could be the first step. Then you get really comfortable with doing that. And you're like, maybe I'll just start adding some sauerkraut juice and meat stock flavor. I don't even know what's in there. There's another step. And you get really comfortable with that, and then you might look at the next step. So it's not a pathway where you can see, like a lighthouse lights up a pathway and you can see what it's going to look like from start to finish. It's like a candle you're holding, and each step you take lights up the next one. So that's the approach that you need to take, and get the support, and not look at someone else's journey and compare it to your own. It's a very individual journey, gaps, and it doesn't need to look a certain way. I didn't do it perfectly the first time. I still struggle with things. I still have some issues popping up. So it's not a perfect journey, and it's not, you know, stage 1 to 6 and then the full gaps like the book. You know, it's something that you head towards.
Intro?
Yeah, but I don't call it intro. When my son walked around the house saying, I'm on stage 4 of gaps, I started to realise that I talk about gaps too much. And so I don't say, I'm going to revisit intro. Today I'm feeling really bloated because of blah. I'm going to eat soups today.
So would you feel that there's an issue? You just do drops for a couple of days and then go back to full
Depends on what's going on. Depends. That's a really hard thing to answer to give a blanket answer to, because it's all individual situations. But once you have started to explore gaps, and then you do get to the point of doing intro and do some healing through gaps, you get so in tune with what's going on in your body, you have the answer to those questions. So, and when I work with my clients, I ask the parent of the child what they think's going on, and that's been taken away from us. That power to think, well, I might know what's going on with my body. You're going to know better than I do how long you need to do it for. So, when I work with adrenal fatigued people, I get them to have 12 egg yolks a day, and they just go, oh my god, that's ridiculous, but you wouldn't question a high dose of any supplement, and that's what you're doing when you're doing something healing through food. You want high doses of dense nutrition. So, and then they say, well, how long do I do that for? Well, as long as you need to. Because you'll get to a point where you're doing 12 egg yolks a day and your body will go yes, and you'll crave it, and you'll be wanting to have it. And then you'll get to a point where you're like, I don't really feel like it today, maybe I'll just have 8. And then I feel like 6, and then I don't feel like it, and then a week later, I need those eggs. Like, you want to start getting in tune with your own body. So same with gaps and, you know, what the journey looks like once you've already done intro, you've done the healing, you do get really in touch with what's going on in here. And so you might get gastro or something and go, I feel like I need to do this for a bit. Like, that stuff you'll start to get in touch with, and you've got the answers for that.
She has dairy, like with her restaurant, she will react.
Yeah, so that's, you know, so the healing hasn't happened.
Yeah, and she only tolerates very, she'll do stewed apple, she'll do she can't really cope with that. So
yeah, so you're not
revisiting then.
Well, you need, because the healing and sealing hasn't happened properly. If there's still foods that are intolerant, then when you do get to the point where you are going to do gaps from stage 1, where you're, introducing the food, you're taking your steps, you've dealt with any overwhelm, you've got to the point where you're ready to do it from stage 1, you will deal with food intolerances. So if she's done from stage 1 and is still intolerant to dairy, there's a problem. So something hasn't happened right. Those intolerances can be here. So I've worked with anaphylaxis allergies. Like, if that hasn't happened, then it does need to be revisited, because the gut hasn't healed and healed properly. Yeah. So, and it's not a failure, because the body will heal when it's ready to. So the first time, I didn't do gaps just once. I didn't do intro just once. So the first time you do it, it might, there's a certain healing and detoxing that you can cope with, and you might need to revisit. So that's all very individual, and if there's still intolerances, they're still not healing together. Yeah, so that's when I always say to people, like, not to compare your journey to other people's, and you don't have to pressure yourself to jump straight into gap stage 1, because so much healing can happen before then. And getting, especially if adrenals are an issue, lifting them up and healing them first can be a great step to then cope with the stress, or, cope with putting your family through stage 1 and doing that with them. So it's just, it doesn't need to look like anything. There's no perfect way to do it. It's just, every step is a step forward. So if you do stage 1 and then realise there's still issues, look at the huge step forward that you've just taken, because there'll be stuff that has resolved, some healing that has happened. So going back to stage 1's not a step back, because the journey doesn't depend on what you're eating, it depends on how you're feeling. So if there's a big improvement, going back to stage 1 isn't going backwards, it's just the next step on the healing journey.
So how are you working with, so for example, my husband does have adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
and he's not necessarily, this is so busy all the time, he's not necessarily mindful of even the process of eating. I'll do what you need, and he'll just inhale it, and eventually I'll be like, hey, seriously, it's not running away. But so how do I help him? Because he will be on board, but how do you help even myself be more in tune? So do you keep a food diary? Do you, like, how do you know that you're actually having a reaction? Because you've got crap for so long, and that's the normal. I guess my biggest issue is that how do I know, like headaches and brain fog and pain and inflammation and not sleeping well, these are things that I've suffered with for bloody 10 to 15 years. So for me, that's just normal to have a night sleep. I wake up and I feel like I'm on the lotto. But how do you know? I mean, how do you tune in, I guess?
So I guess the really tuning in happens when you do the early stages of gaps.
Right.
Because you are going to resolve a lot of those symptoms.
Right.
So in terms of knowing foods that are a problem, that when that really happens is in the early stages. But I guess you can't expect when you do your journey towards gaps and start, including more of the healing foods and including things, you probably will still eat things that you're intolerant to, and it's really hard to know it at that stage. But you're going to be making leaps forward in what you are then providing your body. But when you do go through the early stages of gaps, you will remove a lot of those symptoms. So by detoxing, by healing in those early stages, and then it's like you get yourself to a stable level where that when you do introduce a food and you see a response to it, you're not ready for it yet. So it's kind of, does that answer?
Getting the partner tied in, like how do you, I guess it's
that's not your responsibility. Like that is probably an answer I have to give a lot. And one of the best things that you could do for your partner is do your healing, because he's going to watch that. So, and you learn no better than when you see someone else do it. When you actually experience it rather than just get told. You're going to be telling him, he's going to be like, what do you know? You still got headaches. But if you actually do and go, well, I'm feeling like this, that's when people get on board. They go, well, I want that too. So I find there's a lot of that. Like I work with people and there's a lot of that. The husband's not quite on board or supportive, but not really doing it himself. They've got to come to that. That's his responsibility. And by doing it yourself, you lead the way. And when it comes to the mindfulness and the how to tune in, I don't think going and writing everything you eat is going to help switch off. Actually, switching off is going to help switch off, because you can get too overly focused. And, with adrenal issues, I work with a lot of people with adrenal issues, and they're like, okay, so I've done I'm like, what else? And I'm like, you need to stop. Like the number one thing you can do for your adrenals is stop. Is not do so much, is prioritize the fact that you need to make your life not so busy, because otherwise your adrenals will stop you, and then there'll be no choice about how it happens, when it happens, what you're able to do when it happens. It'll be just to stop. So so I think it's that prioritising it.
Distracting us. At least it's the edible garden.
If you're feeling crap and you don't feel like eating,
nothing on that.
So don't even just stop.
If you actually are looking at something, it's really not like eating, then don't eat. So often when people are doing gaps, they stop feeling like breakfast. That's because you're detoxing, and you detox overnight, and you're still detoxing in the morning, and they're starting to feel nauseous and losing appetite a bit. That's okay. So our body, I think one of the biggest messages to get across is listen to your body. We've been told over and over and over not to. Our whole lives we're told not to, that someone else will tell us when we're ready for something, someone else will tell us how much we need of something, someone else will tell us how long we should do something. You will get really in tune with what's going on in here and start to trust that. And that, I think that is the most important part. You will know when you're ready to take another step, when you're ready to do stage 1, how that's going to look. If you did stage 1 for 3 days and went, I can't handle this, I'm going to go back to full gaps, and it's going to be separate. That's okay. Like, you know that there's still a path that you need to follow, But if it doesn't need to happen the way that you expect it to, because just by doing stage 1 for 3 days, you will have experienced some healing and detoxing, and perhaps that's all your body could cope with at that time. But you know that they're going full gaps, and then you might go, all right, maybe I'm just going to go back to stage 3 for a bit, see how I go there. Maybe I need to detox a bit slower. Maybe my liver is not feeling like it can cope. This is you knowing what's going on in your body and what you're ready to do. So when I first did intro, I jumped into stage 1 and went, this is the way you do it. This is what I'm doing. I'm a GAPS practitioner. I need to do stage 1 from stage 1. When I did my training, I was still breastfeeding. So I was pregnant breastfeeding all my learning of GAPS, and so it was a while till I was able to do actual stage 1 from stage 1. So I'm like, yep, I've got to do it like this. This is how you do it. I didn't cope because I had a lot of toxicity, and so I felt like a failure because I stopped and I went back to full gaps, and then I went back again a week later, and then I coped a little bit better, and then I went back to full gaps, and then I waited another week, and then I went back again. And so it took me a few goes to get through stage 1 because I was listening to my body. My body was not coping with the detox, and that toxicity causes inflammation. So you need to listen to your body and how when it's ready to cope, and it just doesn't look the same for everybody, and there's no competition. No one else is putting expectations on you. It's a journey you're taking with your body as you're ready to. But then I did go back, and now I can go back and I can do stage 1 no problems, because my body's got to a point where it just doesn't have that much toxicity to deal with. So it's just a journey.
That's a really great note, 10 minutes.
Once again, thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact us on the Quirky Cooking Facebook page, or you can email us at help@quirkycooking.com.au. And don't forget that we have 2 classes coming up next week in Melbourne and Thurrool. You can find the details for those on Eventbrite, search Life Changing Food. And we also have our gut health program, which is a year old, just this week, and we'd love to have you join in. If you want to know more about the gut health program, go to gaps.quirkycooking.com.au. Thanks, and have a great week.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.